Broadcasting.
Okay, great. Okay. Good evening. I want to call the Thursday, October 8th Board of Education meeting to order. I know there are a couple of panelists that are in the waiting room. So Kevin, do you have any luck finding Glenn and or Anne?
Working on it right now.
Okay.
All right, Anne is not in yet. She's going to try to get in just a minute. And I don't see Glenn.
Yeah, he said he's in the waiting room.
Kevin, I'll keep an eye and I'll work on it.
Okay, thanks.
I'm just going to tell him, we will find you. Okay. Have board members had a chance to review the agenda?
Yep.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thanks, Mandy. Thanks, Ruth. All in favor of approving the agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Tonight is a short agenda, and we do have a hard stop at 6:50 to allow our staff and perhaps some of our listeners to attend the support webinar that begins at 7. Have folks had a chance to review the consent agenda?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Thanks, Ruth. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Mandy. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. That brings us to reports. Mine is first. Can you get that, Ben? I just wanted to say just a few remarks that tonight we mourn the loss of George Sirocco and Jacques Lucas. This unexpected and tragic death of 2 Wilton High School students is unfathomable. Our hearts, our thoughts, and prayers go out to their families. And we continue to mourn the recent loss of longtime staff member Cesar Jimenez. Everyone has their own reactions during this sad and awful time, but no one is alone. There is a network of support and a network of compassion all around. Students have rallied around each other. Families are talking with their children. We are so grateful to our teachers, counselors, crisis team, and school leaders who are taking care of students even as they themselves are hurting. We are grateful to the Wilton community groups, including the Wilton Youth Council, the clergy, local hospitals, Trackside, the Social Services Department, and private mental health care providers for sharing helpful resources, expertise, and providing comfort. We are grateful to the crisis groups in the area who are helping out and the numerous others who have offered their assistance. So we are indeed not alone. As we are grieving, we have come together. We will take the time together that we need to heal. We will do all we can to support one another in large and small ways. Wilton is a community of people with big hearts. This is not a surprise. It is the Wilton way. Thank you. Dr. Smith.
Thanks, Debbie. I'd like to just echo your sentiments and your gratitude. It is so immensely comforting to experience such a tremendously high level of support during these really dark, dark days. If it's okay, I'd just like to take a couple minutes and update the board and those who are listening on what our response has been and what other kinds of pieces we have in place. So, as you know, this past Monday, we held a parent session with Dr. Andrew Gerber, the medical director from Silver Hill Hospital. The focus of that session was on how to talk with children about grief and suicide. We had just over 200 attendees, and the video from that session is posted to our website. So you'll note if you go to our main page, the yellow button is now linked to grief and response resources. And so the first resource is the video from Monday night. We have a follow-up session planned for tonight at 7 o'clock with Dr. Frank Bartolomeo, who is the Director of Adolescent Services at Silver Hill, and Dr. Elizabeth Ortiz Schwartz, who is the Service Chief for the adolescent transitional living program at Silver Hill. In addition to that follow-up session, we have shared the Kids in Crisis hotline for students and families who are in need of immediate support. That's a 24-hour hotline. And I would just remind families too, they can always access the mobile crisis at 211. We've had a virtual support line active throughout the week for students. And also we've had several on-site locations available for students who prefer in-person support. Tomorrow, for the cohort B students that are coming in, they'll have access to their counselors and other mental health support during the day. We have a therapy dog on site, as we did also on Tuesday. And then we'll have additional grief counselors from the community available for any student, whether you're cohort B or not, here on site from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. after the school day ends. The Wilton Clergy Association has planned an interfaith service for Saturday at 1:30. This is being entitled A Service of Hope and is being offered as an opportunity for the community to grieve together after these significant losses. The Clergy Association members will lead participants in prayers and readings and music and offer some time for reflection. That event is scheduled for Saturday at 1:30 outdoors at Our Lady of Fatima. It's also important to state that the family of Jacques is requesting privacy, and those services for him will really be for family only. And so other family and friends and classmates who would like to participate in a service, we're recommending that they consider joining the interfaith service at 1:30 on Saturday at Fatima. Liz Jorgensen, who is a fairly well-known clinician here in the region, has put together a list of mental health providers who will provide services to families either on a sliding scale or pro bono. We've distributed that list, and so if families need support, either if there are school families, they can contact Kim Zemo here at the school or Sarah Heath at Wilton Social Services, and either one of those folks can refer families. We've also shared that list with the Clergy Association, so if people are tied to their local houses of worship, the leaders there also have that information. Genevieve Eason from the Wilton Youth Council has also been instrumental in coordinating with outside agencies to provide additional support services. She made arrangements with the Fairfield County Trauma Response Team to provide some support sessions for our staff, which 2 of which took place yesterday. Kim Zemo works with a number of agencies. She's been coordinating pretty closely with the Center for Hope to also provide some counseling groups for students and staff who may need it. And I think, just to kind of close out that list, I would just suggest to everybody that, as we heard Dr. Andrew Gerber say the other night, it's important that people know that, whatever feelings they may be experiencing, are okay. And if people need help, help is available, and they should not hesitate to try to access it. So thank you. Thanks for allowing that.
Of course, and again, thank you for all that you and your staff are doing. Are there committee reports? I'm not sure which committees have met. I know that business operations has yet to meet, but did anybody else meet?
No, we postponed the policy committee meeting.
Okay, that makes sense. So that brings us to the financial report. Anne, thank you for joining us tonight. I know that tonight's just sort of a brief overview. We will be discussing financial issues in much more depth, but not tonight. So
Okay.
you could give us the overview, that would be wonderful.
Definitely. Well, as you can see from the report, we're estimating right now about $500,000 over budget. And that, as with everything else in our plans, is a moving target right now based on as each plan comes into place if we have additional expenditures. I'll go into high level just on the grant side. We've received about $200,000 from the state that we actually have that's going against our current expenditures and in place to net against this. From the FEMA side, We still have not gotten any reimbursement or knowledge. We just got notification from them today on an additional sign-in that we needed to do. So that was completed. We're not alone from seeing the emails from other business managers around the state that they're still waiting for their letters from FEMA. And then we will reach out to the state for the second grant that they're offering up there, the CRF grant. So that deadline has been pushed from September to 31st. So we're waiting for that deadline right now for the FEMA letter to reimburse from them. Trying to think from the financial side. So we've encompassed everything. You'll see some lines there with their savings. We've moved things around. And as we've said before, we froze the budget earlier on in this year, but we froze it for the additional expenditures, not anything related to education. So every school, every student, they're getting what they need, the PPEs, the equipment, art gets separate supplies. So we're making sure that they're getting everything. So the things that we've frozen are things like training and conferences, other than the necessity of Schoology, things, technology-based training. And we're using those funds right now to offset some of the expenditures we're going. The game plan for me on this side of it is I want to really wait till January, because that will get us a couple of months under this new changing environment to know where we really are. We should have most of our things in place by then. We have most of the safety security in place, the ebooks, the things like that on the educational side. So January will be the timeline to say, okay, what are we getting from excess cost estimates, things like that, to be able to say, okay, now I need to go in front of the Board of Finance because we are going to need additional funding to cover the expenditures we've had. So without getting into too much more detail, I'd open if anybody has any questions on it, which I can always follow up at a later date.
So just to be clear, the $200,000 from the state, that's already baked in here, and then we're still projecting that year-end balance overage.
No, it's the 200,000 has been taken out of this overage. So this is the net of what? Yes, sorry, I should have explained it. The net of that.
No, I'm sorry, I just didn't follow it. Okay. And then the personnel costs, the custodians are in here.
Yes.
Projected their salaries to the end of the year. And what about the fifth grade teacher?
So it's kind of a hard thing to gauge right now, because we say the custodians, but we're not fully, we don't have all the positions filled yet because we're still going through some of the hiring. So although we may have budgeted at or estimated at a full year, we're not getting full year. So we're putting in those staff members when they get hired. We're estimating a hire date on some of the staff members to put them in here to say, yes, this is what we think.
Right.
And there's obviously, the savings, not savings, until that point we hire them. I'm not incurring those additional expenditures.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go into much more detail at a later date. I was just trying to decipher a couple of things, so thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Okay.
That brings us to tonight's review and discuss the learning model update. Tonight we are talking about Miller Driscoll and Cider Mill and how it's going as we're transitioning to a sort of a full open model. So Kevin, whoever you want to organize this, that would be great.
Great, thank you. I asked Jen and Kathy just to prepare some brief oral reports. As you know, we started on Monday with our kindergarten and first grade at Miller Driscoll and our third grade at Cider Mill. So why don't we start with Mrs. Kuhn, and she can update us on how it's going both with the students in person as well as our remote learners.
Okay, good evening. So I figured to start tonight, I would head out into to the front lines today and get some quotes from some teachers and some kids about how they think it's going and how they feel about being back for in school for 4 days. So when I initially asked some teachers, they said, when I said, how do you feel about being back 4 days? Amazing. I feel more connected with my students. It makes such a difference. We have so much more interaction with the kids. One of the paras said, while there are some challenges, the kids are so happy to be in school. We're happy to see the children for 4 days. It makes the school feel whole again. When I asked the kids, they're adorable. Here were some first graders. One said, oh my gosh, it's like you learned so much. I loved school. Another one, when I said, "How do you feel about being back 4 days?" He was like, "Tired, but I really like school." Some said they like to play with their friends. They get to play games, color, read. I love it. One of the kindergarten students said, "It really keeps me on track being able to come to school." And then my favorite was, "I get to play with my new best friend." And this student pointed to a student next to him and said, "I just made this new best friend yesterday." I was like, wow, okay, that's awesome. So from the kid perspective, from the teacher perspective, from the parent perspective, I think, people are very happy to have the kids back in the building. Just an update on having K-1 back. Obviously, the new model required some changes in the schedule, both on-site and remote. It required some new class placements for some students, which is always, a little bit tough, that change, and obviously some adjustments to arrival and dismissal. Last week, we had an amazing meet and greet for any students who were changing teachers, whether remote or on-site. So that happened last Friday for kindergarten and first grade, and we had today our meet and greet for our second grade students to get ready for next week when they come in starting Tuesday. So for our on-site 4-day kiddos, the sneeze guards arrived last Saturday. Rudy, our head custodian, worked over the weekend to get them all set up so the rooms would be ready for the kids. We welcome the students 4 days a week, like Kevin said, on Monday. The teachers adjusted to their new schedules, and the parents did an amazing job, as did the kids, adjusting to new arrival and dismissal procedures and locations. For the remote-only students, the teaching team started in K-1 this week with their new students on Monday. And I just want to clarify, because I know there were some questions about the number of students in remote classes and having one teacher. We did put out parent communication, and I guess it's my fault, it wasn't clear enough, but there are teacher teams for the remote-only students at each grade level. So there's actually a team of 3 teachers. There is a classroom teacher, an instructional coach who specializes in language arts, and then an instructional specialist in the area of math. So there are teaching teams for the remote-only students. And then they also adjusted to their schedules, which again were changed so that core academics are all before 1:15. Then after 1:15, the students have lunch, they have specials, and they have some asynchronous or small group time in the afternoon. So we're very cognizant of, the issues that we had before around screen time, around the length of the remote day. And so we did change that up. In addition, we scheduled all of the K-1 and then next week, second grade, remote-only students to have snack and recess in the morning at the same time and lunch at the same time. So if households have more than one student who's remote, at least they have the same breaks at the same time. Obviously, some challenges we encountered were, again, around a change of teacher, although that has definitely settled down. There were some questions about the length of the remote learning day. Some would like to keep the shortened day. Some want to really like the full day. The class size right now in kindergarten, our remote class is 21 students. In grade 2, we have 32 students. And in grade 1, 32 students, and in grade 2, 29. You also need to know that sometimes we have some additional students in there if they have to quarantine for a couple weeks for, a variety of reasons. So again, we are confident that the teaching teams can address the needs of those larger class sizes at first and second grade. Let's see what else I need to tell you. Looking forward, again, next week, we're excited to have second grade join us starting on Tuesday in a 4-day model. And just so you know, we will continue to monitor the number of students in the remote classes. And yesterday we had training with Teachers College, our Teachers College staff developer, who did some very specific training with our remote teaching teams, again, around how best to deliver the instruction, via Zoom and things like that, and some other tools like Jamboard and all of those kinds of things. So I'm going to say kudos again to my staff. Again, they're amazing. They're adjusting. And I think at this point we have the best model that we can have for both the kids in school and the remote only students as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Jen, go ahead.
Kathy, I just have two questions. My first question would be a child who is typically in person and just isn't feeling well that day, can they sign into the remote classroom?
Not for just one day.
Okay.
So we, again, because it's very hard to bring a student in. So
Yeah.
what we do is if parents have requests to, switch models, that all goes through Dr. Cross and he monitors all of that. And we kind of take it on a case by case basis, depending upon what is going on. But usually we have students access that remote only class for longer term kinds of things. So other kids, if they, have the sniffles or aren't feeling so great, they're just out on a sick day.
Okay. My other question would be, you guys have 3 teachers teaching the remote classes. Are they breaking those 20, 30 kids out so that there's not 30 some on a screen at one time, or are they all on the screen at the same time?
There might be some times that they're on the screen all at the same time, but it's a very limited amount of time. So if one of the teachers, for example, is delivering a mini lesson, which is usually in person, it's usually about 10 minutes. On Zoom, it's even shorter. So it's usually, less than 10 minutes. Then that mini lesson is delivered and then students are broken out into breakout rooms. Or again, some might go into a breakout room with with one of the teachers. Some of the kids, especially in first grade, go into breakout rooms in pairs and they're given a particular assignment to do. And the teachers then, bop around the breakout rooms. You also have to, it's hard to explain, but there's a lot of support in classrooms. So we also have, again, we have a science instructor who zooms into the classroom and again does science lessons. And when those lessons are going on, that's even an additional person. Some of the remote only classrooms have paraprofessionals who are in the classroom to support the kids in special ed. Special ed teachers push in, speech pathologists. So we have this core team of 3 teachers, but there are also other supports in there. So we do try to break up the day. We understand having 32 students on a Zoom for a long period of time is not a good idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy,
Mhm.
the board decided a few meetings ago to cut back fairly substantially on the amount of time, the remote days our youngest learners were on screen. But it sounds as though that's gone away by the schedule that you mentioned just a few minutes ago. I don't understand that.
Well, the entire time when we cut when we shortened the remote day for students,
Right.
When we did that, we still offered asynchronous activities and again, small groups to the students in the afternoon. And I will tell you that when we also initially did that, the majority of students were having remote, and the amount of remote instruction that they had, it impacted 2 of the days. So I think what's really hard at this point is we have students back in school 4 days that are 4 full days. We have students that are, remote 5 days a week. And so if we absolutely cut every single day of the week down to 1:15 for the remote only students, I would not be able to confidently say that we're going to be able to deliver the curriculum in the same way that we are for the on-site students. So I think because it will be such a difference between 4 remote days and 4 on-site days, if you take 2 hours or over 2 hours off of every day for remote students, that turns into a lot of time when you multiply that by 4 days a week. So we purposefully adjusted the schedule to say, okay, at 1:15, the students will eat lunch. Right after that, the students will have their special. And then after that, there's about a half an hour's worth of time. So again, there are some asynchronous activities. Sometimes teachers will pull kids in a small group or pull a student to do an assessment. And what we really are doing is if parents are having issues with their students at home, then we're kind of taking that on a case by case basis. So like I said, I've had some parents say, I want the longer day. I've had some parents say, I want a shorter day. Some parents who say they want the shorter day, there's a whole variety of reasons. Some parents want a shorter day because they actually have a tutor who's working at home with a small group of kids. Well, that's great, but then we have other people where if we shortened the day, those students would have nothing. So that was our thinking around it, to say, here's how we're planning for the afternoon. And, you know, again, the teachers have been conscious of the fact that we have to balance on screen, off screen, synchronous, asynchronous. So that's where we are with it right now.
All right. Well, I think it's important that parents understand the thinking behind what we've done. And you just explained it very well. Although it is still going to be a problem for, I'm sure, many of the students to try and be on screen that much. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Did you describe lunch?
Lunch?
Yeah.
For who?
The kids.
The kids on site or the kids off site?
Probably on site.
So for on site, the kids are still having lunch in their classrooms.
Okay.
They also are still having art, music, and library push into the classroom, which has been great because, again, we're conscious of the fact that, you know, when kids move around in the hallway, even though they put their arms out and, you know, try to stay at a good distance from each other, that gets a little tricky. So the only special that they're going to during the day is PE. And we've been super lucky with the weather, although I'm sorry, like we're kind of having a drought, but we've been pretty lucky with the weather that we've been able to go outside a lot. So the kids have lunch in the classroom. The teachers take them outside for snack. They take them outside for all kinds of instruction too, just because, like I said, the weather has been great and we've tried to capitalize on that. We've also scheduled, we have frequently scheduled material pickups for our kiddos who are remote only. So last Wednesday, well, it was yesterday. It seems so long ago. But we put tables out. Parents can bring back
No,
books.
I can't.
And pick up new materials. So.
Okay. It all sounds amazing. Have there been any like major hiccups or issues? Like how's the traffic or?
The traffic is okay. Our dismissal the first couple of days took about 10 minutes extra. So we were pretty proud of that. We'll see how it goes when we add on second grade. But again, because the parents have been so good at arriving at their staggered times, I feel like that has helped with the traffic. There's definitely more traffic, but I feel like it's definitely helped if people respect the times and there's less backup on Wolf Pit and Belden Hill. So,
Kathy, I just had a quick question. It's so great to hear how well it's going and all the good feedback. Do you think this has helped to see how well KN1 is to help reduce the anxiety of the second grade teachers? Like, how are they feeling bringing kids in on Monday?
Oh, yeah, I think it definitely has helped ease anxiety. Again, it was the teacher survey was different by grade level. So, you know, different teachers had different opinions about it. The other thing well, never mind.
Moving on.
I'll just answer your question instead of blabbing on and on.
That's perfect. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it's going well.
You're welcome. I do want to give a shout out to the remote teachers, though. I am going to say it. Sorry, Mandy. I'm going to say they all volunteered. So nobody had to be, you know, told or voluntold or whatever to do this. All three of the teachers who are teaching, heading up these remote classes, all volunteered to do this. So I think that says a lot for them because it is not easy. And again, they have a lot of support, but this is not an easy thing. So kudos to all three. So Jacqueline Brunetto, Janine Hussey, and John Basegli. Way to go.
Awesome.
I'm done now. Promise.
Oh, that's wonderful. And, you know, it's wonderful to hear a little bit of good news. So, and we know it's a heavy lift. So thank you. And hope it goes smoothly with bringing grade 2 back.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Jen, tell us about Sutter Mill.
Great. All right. So third grade went wonderful coming back for these last couple days on site. So really excited having them all back. It was lovely and went around to each of the classrooms and it was really cool. Little odd seeing all their wonderful faces behind the sneeze guards in the rooms. But other than that, it was wonderful to have them all back in the building. I definitely think people are feeling more comfortable having everybody back. Our really only concern is traffic flow, I would say, is the biggest thing. We have only one way in and out of Cider Mill, really, because the exit out onto School Road from the south side is really only a exit. And so coming in the cider mill, if you guys know that kind of entry exit where all the buses and everybody's coming in, that one kind of area can get a little hairy. So that is, I would say, is really our biggest concern at this time. So that's kind of a good thing. The model overall, I think we landed in a really nice place, not exactly where I think the board or any of us anticipated. We're kind of in a hybrid model for the teachers, but with a remote or a full on-site for students. To be clear, we spent the weekend where we got the survey results going through all different models. We really tried to offer all three models. That was my goal, was to be able to offer to families the hybrid, the remote, and the full on-site. I think the board will be happy that I didn't come to you with that because Kevin, what did we say I would need? Was it 10 teachers?
Just 8.
Eight teachers I would have needed to be able to do that, and even just to be able to do the remote only teachers and not to have our current teachers doing both on-site and remote, I would have needed to come and ask you guys for 6 teachers to be able to do that. And it just, obviously, that was clear that that wasn't feasible. So the best case scenario was to add the 5th grade teacher, have our teachers teach. The good news is that we were able to keep most of our kids within their teams, which came through loud and clear on the survey results that was such a huge priority for our families. And it was loud and clear from our staff, from the many conversations and the feedback that I got from my staff. Everybody wanted the same thing. Families didn't want to lose their teachers, and our teachers didn't want to lose their students. And so this really model that we ended up with allowed us to keep most of the kids at least on the team, if not with their homeroom teacher. So in that way, the model that we ended up with was very positive. We hope to have the new 5th grade teacher in place by the end of next week. We started interviews today and have 2 very, very solid candidates. We are absolutely thrilled. And we have demo lessons going tomorrow and hope to have a recommendation to superintendent by the end of tomorrow and go through references and everything, hopefully over the weekend, and then go through the final steps of the process early next week and have the teacher in place for the end of next week. So we're really, really happy about that. Let's see. Lunch, we did make some shifts in the way we were doing lunch. I would say that was a pretty big concern. We had lots of conversations with Dr. Mackin about lunch and having our masks off and how long and how close we were going to be with the number of desks that were still in each of our classrooms. And it definitely was a concern. So we decided we were going to separate the way we ran lunch and recess. And we were going to hold just lunch in the cafeteria and up in the science lab. And so there are basically desks 6 feet apart in both of those areas so that students have to stop by their classrooms for their lunches, but they are able to then take demask and have their lunches We're trying to keep it anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes as recommended by Dr. Mackin. Obviously enough time for them to eat healthily, but then not linger. So the idea is that we eat, not rush, but then that we get them outside to recess, or they go back to their classroom with masks on for recess so that the cafeteria or the science lab could be cleansed, and then before the next round comes in for lunchtime. So that's how we're doing lunch. Just in regard to having the kids back, again, I had said that feedback was that every third grade teacher said it went really, really well. We went over a lot of the procedures and just what it was like to move around the building and social distancing. Obviously, having the double amount of kids, it's just almost like doing day one all over again. And so kind of doing a lot of that orienting all over again. And so we anticipate doing the same thing with our 4th and 5th graders. So, but we're looking forward to it.
Great. And
questions?
Those parents who are listening, we have room on our buses. So
yes.
to reach out to Fran Williams and just to try to free up traffic if they're comfortable sending their children on buses.
Yeah, I put a little note in my parent update because I believe Fran Williams can give very specific information about which buses have space because we have certain buses that come in with like almost nobody on the bus. So
thanks, Jen.
Thank you so much. Questions, comments?
Jen, I just had one. Well, first of all, just kudos to you and your staff. I was in the building a week or so ago watching everybody, figure out space and how everything was going to work. And I'm a very happy third grader. We talked about how loud the building is now and how
I know. The best sound in the world, right?
Yeah. So just congratulations on that. And I just wanted to just generally though, just like have a check-in to make sure that the teachers who are kind of teaching in the hybrid model feel like they're, adequately able to, support the kids at home and balance the two. And, if there's like resources that might be needed or anything along those lines, just to know that, we just, are cognizant of that, that extra lift and that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think in anything, in any of our models, there's going to be pros and cons with any of these models. I think that we did so much community building that I'm going to be honest, the teachers did not want to lose any of their kids. So making a change mid-year, like I know, it's so easy to say we need to be fluid, we need to transition, and because we're in COVID, but if that means moving kids, it is so hard to let go of any relationships that you've built along the way. And sometimes it's just unavoidable because we have to add a 5th grade class. There is nothing we can do about it. Kathy had to move around students because we had to add those 3 teachers. It's like there are times when it is just not avoidable, right? But it is just really difficult. And so as much as it's going to be difficult, I think, for our teachers, so I really appreciate you acknowledging it, I think that what we're going to do is do a lot of strategizing. We're already thinking of ways of they're doing a great job of buddying our at-home kids up with somebody that's in the classroom to make sure that, that we don't lose sight of any of the kids that are at home. I think it was a little bit different when we were in the true hybrid model because you had a lot more kids at home. And so, we definitely don't want to lose sight of anybody at home. And so, I think, like I said, I walked into a class the other day and we have these class charters that we make. And it all starts with how do you want to feel? It's all part of the ruler program. And so the kids kind of design it. It's part of it's all kid created. And it's all about how you want to feel as part of being in this class community. And one of the words was included. And it was so cute. The teacher was holding the charter up and the word was included right up to where the kids were at home, and they were just talking about how it was like so critical to make sure that the kids that were like sitting at home were included and were part of this like classroom community. So it's something that is like everybody is cognizant of, the whole class community, and that they're all working on. And, you know, I think it's just part of something that they're all navigating. But I appreciate it. It's part of professional learning, just like Kathy said, that she's doing with TC, and just using tech to keep making sure that we're, you know, using smart technology to find easy ways of doing this. So thank you, though.
All right. No, well, thank you, both you and Kathy. And again, to the teachers, you know, bravo. It's wonderful to hear happy news.
Our teachers are phenomenal.
I know.
Anytime you can jot them anything, I mean, anybody who's in our classrooms and watch what they're doing, you would be
amazed.
Amazed. It is. They are unbelievable.
Yep. So thank you for both of those reports. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. This is a very short agenda tonight. Middlebrook, we will be discussing at a special meeting next week, next Thursday night. We added another meeting. Jen, I do not mean to cut you off, but if you want to get approval for the 5th grade teacher, we need to sort of get through the agenda.
Carry on.
And vote those funds. So thanks to both of you and all your staff and all the parents and everybody's flexibility and creativity. Thank you. That's really great to hear. Okay. Kevin, I know we're going to sort of review and discuss the calendars. We're not going to approve them tonight. So just tell us to go do our homework and send you questions, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to keep moving. All right, so the teacher evaluation and support plan, this is a state requirement that we approve every year. And I guess with COVID, there are some exceptions. So do you want to take us very quickly through it?
We're just approving we're asking for a motion to approve the flexibilities that the state has provided us tonight. And Chuck will give you that in 60 seconds or less.
Sure. So given the circumstances we're in, the state has allowed us some flexibility in implementing the teacher evaluation plan. And there are basically 3 areas. One is the summative ratings. They are not, we will not be providing a summative rating to any of the teachers. We will be providing feedback to them in narrative form. The teachers will also engage in a self-assessment, but there will be no ratings as we traditionally do them. We'll also be allowing teachers to set goals around the very important areas of social emotional learning, student engagement, and family engagement. And that will also be true for the administrators. And then finally, instead of doing a lot of formal observations, we'll be doing more frequent informal observations of the staff. The state does require that this be approved by the Teacher Evaluation Committee, and it was unanimously approved when we met. And it does require that the board approve these flexibilities as well. We have to adopt the flexibilities in total. We can't pick and choose which flexibilities we want to adopt. So.
Thank you for that brief but concise or clear explanation. Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve the, what do they call the flexibility, the teacher and evaluation support plan for this year with all the flexibility that Chuck described?
So moved.
Thanks, Mandy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Gretchen. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's been approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so staffing proposals. Kevin, I'm not sure, Kevin or Jen, but can you just explain the needs?
Yeah, so there are 2 very briefly. One is you're already well aware, is we were bringing kids back to Sutter Mill in person. Given the limitations of our geographic space and the limits of class size as a result, what we needed to do was open an additional section for 5th grade to accommodate that. So the classroom occupancy right now is capped at about 19. We weren't able to move those classes to some of the larger spaces in the building because we're using those for lunch, which was also necessary. We carry a third worry about the students that are home on remote learning, and at some point whether or not those families will have a desire to bring those fifth graders back in person. We have very limited space with the current configuration and numbers of staff, and so we're asking the board to approve an interim 1-year fifth grade teacher. I'm estimating, just given the time of the year, I'm estimating probably in the neighborhood of about $90,000 between salary and benefits. We're already, just over a month in, so it wouldn't be, the full freight here for a teacher. And given that it's an elementary teacher, I'm expecting, the candidates available are probably some of the more inexperienced candidates. So I'm anticipating that they would fall lower on the salary scale. So that's the first proposal. And then the second one is a much smaller amount. We just need a couple of extra cafeteria recess monitors. And so we're estimating, I think it's 3 additional to cover for, assuming we're in for the remainder of the year. And that's about, probably $25,000.
Okay. All right, thank you. Questions for Kevin? Is there a motion to approve the cafeteria aides at Cider Mill and the interim 1-year fifth grade teacher at Cider Mill?
So moved.
Thank you, Glenn. Second?
Second.
Second.
Thanks, Gretchen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Debbie, you're muted.
I'm sorry. That brings us to the future meeting schedule. We are adding a meeting next week because this one is so short, and it will, there'll be a Middlebrook discussion about their learning model there. All right, so, and the enrollment report we got, I'm sure it raised questions, but we will postpone a discussion about that till another meeting where we can put it on the agenda for a proper discussion. This brings us to comments from the public. Lucille, do we have any public comment for tonight?
Yes, we have 2.
All right, could you read them? And, I'm assuming that they're all, let's not, as I say to every time, we limit them to about 2 minutes.
Yep.
And we don't respond directly, but we listen and or read all of them. So thank you. Actually, we can read all of them. So thank you.
The first comment is from Cecilia Cordova, 25 River Road, Wilton, Connecticut. Thankfully, there has been 0 fatalities or hospitalizations of school-age children pre-K through 12 in all of Fairfield County since tracking began in March. Governor Lamont has recently stated when he visited Wilton that he is committed to in-person schooling, but that the decision-making responsibility is on the local district leaders. Question, without pointing to either federal or state guidelines, can you tell the students, teachers, and parents of Wilton when we can expect to have a reevaluation of the COVID-19 containment plan that is currently in place with an eye toward a return to normal, as other schools inside and outside of our state have done? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The second comment is from Kristen Gilchrist Wax. I don't see her address. Dear Dr. Smith, Principal Kuhn, members of the Board of Education, I am writing to urge you again to reconsider the distance learning plan for Miller Driscoll School. I have attached my first letter about this topic below. None of my concerns or arguments have changed. They align with many arguments made at a September BOE meeting where the Board of Education heard the concerns of parents, administrators, and teachers and unanimously passed a schedule change for Miller Driscoll, ensuring that all distance learning days would be shortened. Beginning October 5th, the hybrid program was expanded so that in-school learners would attend 4 days a week. Wednesdays remain remote for all learners because obviously 6+ hours of screen time for our youngest learners remains untenable. Inexplicably, the school changed the distance learning back to 4 full days for 100% remote learners. Parents of 100% remote learning students were not surveyed. I am unaware of any BOE meeting discussion or approval for this. Absolutely nothing about how detrimental this extensive screen time is for our youngest learners has changed. Frankly, I am furious that this change was made unilaterally against the vote of the BOE and against the better judgment expressed by all shareholders less than 1 month ago. It is imperative for our children and their physical and mental health that all remote days be shortened for Miller Driscoll students. I urge you to change the schedule back so that all remote days are shortened immediately. Respectfully, Kristen Gilchrist Wax. And that's it for public comment.
Okay, thank you very much to both of those writers, and please be assured we hear your concerns. That brings us to the end of our agenda tonight, and I hope I allowed enough time for those who are listening to get over to the webinar, and certainly for our staff to change gears. So I am adjourning the meeting. Thank you very much. Good night.
Everybody.